My wife laughed at me during the divorce trial. Then I took off my shirt, the whole courtroom went silent. The courtroom was cold, far too cold for the situation I found myself in. The judge's gavel had barely fallen when my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, leaned back in her chair, smirking like she had already won. She crossed her legs with exaggerated confidence, her expensive red-bottom heels tapping lightly against the polished floor. "Your Honor," she purred, brushing a perfectly manicured nail against her cheek, "let's be honest here. My husband," she turned her eyes toward me, full of contempt, "is like a workhorse, reliable, predictable, and very, very easy to ride." The courtroom let out a few murmurs, some gasps, and even a muffled chuckle from her lawyer. The judge barely raised an eyebrow before rapping his gavel to quiet the room. I clenched my jaw, but I didn't react, not yet. She was putting on a performance, and I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose my temper. The divorce had been her idea, of course. After 8 years of marriage, she had decided I was no longer enough for her, no longer exciting, no longer the man she thought she deserved. But instead of leaving with dignity, she had dragged me into this courtroom, determined to humiliate me on the way out. She had already gotten the house, the one I had built with my own hands. She had fought tooth and nail for half my business, even though she had contributed nothing to it. And now, in this final hearing, she was still twisting the knife. Her new boyfriend was sitting in the back row, watching with detached amusement, a corporate lawyer, polished, confident, and everything she had convinced herself she wanted. She hadn't even bothered to be discreet about it. I had caught them months ago in our own bed, wrapped in sheets I had paid for. But I wasn't going to crumble because what she didn't know was that this trial wasn't the final battle, it was just the setup. Her lawyer, a smug-looking man in an expensive suit, stood and adjusted his tie. "Your Honor, my client merely wishes to express her concerns regarding Mr. Hayes' ability to provide alimony in the long term. She made significant lifestyle sacrifices while married to him, and she deserves fair compensation for those years." Sacrifices? That was rich. Judge Reynolds peered over his glasses at me. "Mr. Hayes, do you have a response?" I took a slow breath, gripping the edge of the table in front of me. This was the moment. Slowly, deliberately, I reached up and unbuttoned my dress shirt. The courtroom went silent. Even the judge tilted his head, clearly curious about what I was doing. I didn't rush, I wanted every second to stretch. One by one, I undid the buttons, then shrugged off the shirt completely. And that's when the gasp started. Even my wife's smirk vanished. Her boyfriend's amused expression turned into something else, something like unease. Because standing there in the cold air of the courtroom, I was unrecognizable from the man my wife had been mocking. The last time she had really looked at me, I had been soft, comfortable, a man who had spent too many years working, providing, sacrificing, but not taking care of himself. I had been easy to ignore, easy to cheat on, but the man standing before them now, broad, powerful, completely transformed. I had spent months preparing for this. Hours at the gym, training relentlessly, pushing my body until the pain became a companion. The weight I had once carried in stress and exhaustion had been replaced with lean, disciplined muscle. Scars lined my torso, the kind you don't get from an easy life. And most importantly, right over my heart, I had gotten a tattoo. The ink was fresh enough that the colors were still settling, but it was bold and deliberate. A workhorse breaking free of its chains. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone, especially not my wife. She was staring, her eyes wide, her mouth slightly open. Her lawyer recovered quickly. "Your Honor, I fail to see how this is relevant to." I cut him off, my voice calm, steady, but cold as steel. "You want to talk about sacrifices?" I turned to the judge. "For 8 years, I gave everything to this marriage. I worked overtime so she could quit her job and find herself. I paid for her shopping sprees, her fancy vacations, her cosmetic procedures. I even put her name on my business, thinking we were a team." I shifted my gaze back to my wife, watching the color drain from her face. "And how did she repay me?" I gestured toward the man in the back row. "With him." A few murmurs swept through the courtroom again. Her lawyer tried to object, but Judge Reynolds held up a hand. "Let him speak." I nodded in appreciation before continuing. "You called me a workhorse, huh?" My lips curled into a slow, deliberate smirk. "That's funny because this workhorse is about to run right over you." Her expression twisted. Panic flickered in her eyes. I reached down, grabbing a thick manila envelope from my chair. It slammed onto the table with a loud thud. "Inside this file," I said, my voice ringing clearly, "are documents proving you have been committing financial fraud, hiding money, claiming expenses from my business that had nothing to do with you." Her mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. "And because of that," I continued, "I'm not only taking your alimony request off the table, I'm suing you for damages." The courtroom exploded into whispers. Her lawyer scrambled to flip through his notes while she sat frozen. Her perfectly rehearsed confidence shattered. For the first time in months, I saw something new in her eyes, not arrogance, not amusement, but fear. And we weren't even done yet because the best part. This was only the beginning. The weight of my words still hung heavy in the air. My soon-to-be ex-wife sat frozen, her nails digging into the polished wood of the defense table, her carefully crafted mask of arrogance starting to crack. The confident, dismissive smirk she had worn moments ago had been replaced with something far more satisfying, panic. Her lawyer, no longer smirking either, shuffled through his papers, clearly unprepared for the storm I had just unleashed. "Your Honor," he stammered, adjusting his tie. I'd like to request a short recess so we can review these supposed. Judge Reynolds held up a hand, silencing him. Not yet. His sharp gaze turned to me. Mr. Hayes, you're saying you have evidence that Mrs. Hayes committed financial fraud? I nodded, keeping my posture calm.